Come on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to episode 270 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. And this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. My guest for this episode was Chris Ball, CEO and founder of Hoxton Wealth. Now, Chris started his career in 2004 with KPMG as a tax advisor, specializing in personal taxation issues related to investment income and pensions. Chris trained at KPMG Tax Business School in Canary Wharf, England, for his Chartered Accountant and Chartered Taxation Advisor exams. After 7 years with KPMG, Chris moved to the Middle East to join the Ezra Group, where he continued his work as an IFA, starting in their Abu Dhabi offices and eventually heading up their Qatar operations for the group, dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. Chris then founded Hoxton Wealth, which was then called Hoxton Capital Management, with Matt Dean, where the sole emphasis of the group is to help high net worth and ultra high net worth clients with borderless global financial advice. Chris's specialty is assisting individuals with their retirement planning needs. Now, when you listen to this interview, you'll learn the answer to the following questions. 1, what's the secret behind the tremendous growth of Hoxton Wealth? What is their tech stack that they put together to support their global clientele? What's unique about their client portal? And what are their plans for 2025? But before we get started, a couple of housekeeping tasks. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Check out our sponsor, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation. You can find more information about them at investinothers.org. All right, let's kick this thing off. All right, I'm excited to introduce my next guest. It is Chris Ball, CEO and founder of Hoxton Wealth. Hey, Chris, welcome to the program, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
Chris, I have to say, where are you calling in from?
Well, it's quite dark behind me, as you can see, but actually, out my window normally is sand. So I'm in Dubai.
I was looking at that like it's dark. It's pitch dark, and it's only 10 a.m. here. So clearly, you're on the other side of the world.
We're not at the North Pole.
No, not the North Pole. That'd be a different type of weather. But how are things down in Dubai these days?
They are really good, thanks. It's a beautiful time of the year here. Summer is gone. It gets extremely hot here in the summer months. Winter months are beautiful. So yeah, looking forward to having a lovely Christmas with my family, and actually going to go to France as well. So some snow, as you know, it makes a nice change from the sand and a bit of real cold weather. So yeah, so looking forward to it.
That's fantastic. All right. Tell us, can you please give us a 30-second elevator pitch for Hoxton Wealth?
Yeah, so basically it's where traditional financial planning meets technology or wealth tech, as it's called. We focus on 5 main areas: financial planning, investment advice, tax, legal, and property. And we utilize technology to enhance our client experience. Kind of in developed countries, US, UK, other parts of the world, technology is used all the time within financial planning. Internationally, if you're an internationally mobile individual, it's quite hard to find a firm that does it like that. So that's the gap that we fill. Slightly longer than 30 seconds, but you get where I'm going.
No, it's just a guideline. So what made you choose Dubai as your headquarters?
I've been here for 13 years. So I was in Abu Dhabi for 9 years, moved up here 4 years ago. And it was really where I built my base, and my contacts, people that I know. It's also very good from a tax efficiency point of view. Unlike, you good Americans, we don't get taxed on our worldwide income being British. So that works really well. And you can also fly anywhere direct as well, Craig. So that's really good too.
Sounds like I need to move out of New Jersey. Although I can fly anywhere, but we got tax problems here. All right, enough of my issues. So let's jump into your technology. Talk about some of the challenges you overcame when scaling your business from a startup. You mentioned this. You should have thrown this into the 30-second elevator pitch. You're over $2 billion in assets. Talk about some of the challenges there.
Yeah, so we currently sit today in dollar terms at $2.5 billion of assets, and we grew that from about $45 million when we started. So it's been a pretty aggressive growth. we've utilized technology to help us in a number of ways. So when we started the business in 2018, a lot of financial planners would typically write all of their notes on paper. People were just starting to move over to more technology based solutions, but we were able to start with a fresh page and from day one, itemize all of our data. So all of our client information, all of our prospect information, all of our records, everything was kept on. So now when we go back, the management information that we can get is unreal because we've collected it from the start. And it's also much easier to ingrain it in people when you start on how to and why to use technology, especially in an industry where it's not, a profession where it's not as prevalent or people don't, it's not a technology based, business. It's predominantly wealth planning. So it's hard to move people. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks sometimes. So we use technology to our advantage. It enables us to look after more clients. It enables us to automate some of our admin and support functions. And it's been really, really, useful and helpful in us scaling the business as fast as we have.
What was the biggest problem you had to overcome besides the paper?
Biggest problem that we had to overcome, I suppose, is use. It's great having technology, but if people aren't using it, then that's a problem. You don't want to spend all of this money or capital investing in solutions and then people don't use it. So it was really making it client and advisor centric. Our advisors need to want to use it and need to see how it helps them. And we also need to ensure that they have to use it. So it's not optional. So soon it just becomes ingrained in everyone. This is the way that we do things. You can't go out of those guide rails. So that was super important.
And how many advisors do you have at the firm?
So we have 70, but we have 298 headcount in total, which includes support staff, marketing, back office, all of that kind of good stuff too.
And are they all in Dubai? Are they remote?
So we have different operations. So we have a big hub in the Middle East. That's our largest kind of pool. So we have about 180 people here. We also have a large presence in the UK. We have offices in the US. We have offices in Australia, in Europe. So people are spread, and again, using technology to make sure that everyone is connected, or globally they don't feel like they are working remotely outside of our organization, helping everyone work off and sing off the same hymn sheet.
And so with the 2.5 billion in assets growing from a mere 45 million in 2018, how many households, client relationships do you have?
So we have 7,000 clients globally.
I did not expect that number.
What was you expecting?
I was expecting a lot less. I was expecting
Was
like
you?
70. We have 70
Yeah.
clients and they're just all, very, very wealthy.
Yeah.
7,000 clients. So that requires a very robust tech stack. So let's jump right into that. What is your tech stack?
So what's quite hard, Craig, is operating internationally across all the different countries that we do. Let's say we was just operating in the US or in the UK, there would typically be one CRM that we would use, one front office solution that we'd use, portfolio management, whatever. But because we're operating across so many different jurisdictions, there was nothing that pulled it all together. It was very much something that we had to go out and build. So we started from scratch. We started off developing out our own client fact find. That led into us building our own CRM system. That led to us building out our own billing accounting system. We've got our own client portal, which is actually a separate module. Portfolio management tools, all of these things we've had to build from scratch. So we have a team of 25 developers in-house. And they built a lot of this. Obviously, we run things like Microsoft 365, all of that kind of good stuff as well. But predominantly, most of the technology that we use all day, every day in the business has been built and developed in-house. And that's maybe not something I would suggest for everyone to do, because if you can buy it off the shelf, sometimes that's perfectly fine. And, big companies spend lots of money on this to develop it. So I normally find trying to go your own way is sometimes counterproductive. Um, but then also, on the flip side, it is our own IP. At some point in the future, there's potential to go and license it out ourselves. Um, so it's been a big learning curve, but it's been something I've really enjoyed as well, and it's a whole other part of the business that we might not been involved in.
I would say that sounds like a challenge when you're scaling a
Mm.
business to build all your own technology.
Yeah, it
A
is a
huge effort.
challenge.
Easy? Oh, wow, I'm impressed because it's not your core business is building software. Your core business is managing clients' wealth, right? So having this capability, hiring developers, having them build software, as you know, the hiring developers and managing them is like herding cats. Right?
Yeah.
So being able to build tools that you can use globally for clients, which I imagine some have very complex needs around tax and legal and property, looking at the different areas you cover. How long did it take to build the software till it came to the point where it was widely used across the firm?
I'd probably say 2022, 23, really kind of back in the 22, start of 23 is when everyone really started using it as it should be before people were trying to have workarounds and things like that. But that's when it really caught on and everyone started to really see the power because we also had the data of the past four and a bit years in there too. So that was when people started to go, okay, I get this now and I get where you're going with it. And we could make good, important management decisions from it. The advisors and planners that we work with could use it to, to showcase the company's skills to their clients on our front end. So our client portal, we released a brand new one in 23, which essentially enabled them to link accounts to it that we didn't manage, live access. So all of this was pretty market leading internationally for what we were doing. And, it got up to a space where people were really comfortable in using it.
I had all these questions about what vendors you chose and why you picked them, and now that's all out the window. I got to delete all these questions because you have no vendors. You built everything yourself. Or maybe I should ask: Are you using any off-the-shelf wealth softwares?
Yeah, so we've actually started looking at a planning tool in the UK in the US called Money Guide. That's for a US based business, but again, we've struggled because that doesn't encapture everything internationally that we need it. But as our footprint in the US grows more, we've started to use that.
Hmm.
Um, there is other tools. Before we was using a cash flow modeling system called Cash Calc in the UK. That worked really well. We do use providers like TrustNet for portfolio and get feeds in from them. We actually get feeds in from the London Stock Exchange as well. Um, we use Yodely. We use Snaptrade for feeds. There's some others as well, but off the top of my head, I can't really remember them. But there's plenty of people that we rely on as well to assist.
So since you do have some off-the-shelf software, so do you have any best practices, especially in an environment like yours, for selecting software that has to be highly adapted to your specific environment?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's all around the customer support and service functions. Obviously, it needs to function well. I think that's a bit of a
Mm.
given. But if you have problems, how quick are people to respond? If how often are they developing their tools? Are they investing in it, or is it kind of just some legacy product that people use and there's no real capital getting spent on it anymore, and they're not building it out and developing it? Is it part of a wider business or a bigger business that you can rely on as well? Um, we've had some service issues with some of the providers that we've used, and it's just because they've run out of funding, or they were new and eager when we started. Now they're much more established and less keen on working with everyone. So it's getting that balance right.
That is an issue when firms grow. They start out, they're very anxious to help, and they've got a lot of ability to build new stuff for you because they're small. But once they get larger, they run into legacy issues, and then their client base starts to drag them down, and then they're not so excited about building new stuff just for you.
exactly.
So, with all this technology you have built yourself, how important is a seamless advisor experience, and how difficult is it to deliver that across the different areas, different parts of the world that you guys operate in?
Yeah, it's tough, and I mean, but ultimately, as a business, we have two clients. Advisors are our clients, and then their clients, almost secondary clients, if that makes sense. So if you keep your advisors happy and can make a great experience for them, they're going to deliver a great experience to the clients that they're servicing. So we have to think of it that way. So it can't just be, end client led. It's got to be the guys being able to utilize the tools and the system as well. So that's super important. And yeah, like, I think it's about I try and tell my tech team to try and make things as simple as possible. People, try and get through in as least clicks as possible. Try and make things not unnecessarily complicated for clients and for the advisors using it. Because if you're trying to bamboozle them and trying to add too much functionality, yes, in 1% of the cases it might work, but actually it adds a whole layer of complexity, which means a lot of people don't use it. So it's really figuring out what people use and what people don't, and trying to hone in on that.
I'm very interested in your client portal, and you mentioned you've added some features like held away accounts
Mm.
and linking. So the client portal is one of the most important applications at any wealth firm. It's the one piece of technology that every client, or what you hope most of your clients, are interacting with, and it's
Yeah.
really the doorway, the pathway to everything you're doing with them. So how did you ensure when you built your own, first of all, that it was designed in a way that would be attractive to your clients, and then how did you ensure the data that was there was correct and the clients were receiving a modern experience?
Look, I think ultimately we went through many iterations. We had kind of like version 1.0, version 2.0, now we're on version 3.0, and they've got better every time. What we've tried to do is create our client portal to not just be kind of like a balance sheet of their assets and that's it. We want them to be able to get some functionality so they can use it themselves. And the whole point is that we believe that the portal or the client application should be good for clients and also non-clients, i.e., prospects as well. And it should be used as a prospecting tool too. So people can go on there, download it for free, use the tools as if they were a client of ours, and really start to get a feel and a flavor for what we're about. Um, that's really important to us because we want it to be a client acquisition tool as much as we want it to be a client support tool or function as well. And I think so many times, these things like you see with your bank, you go on it just to check your balance, but that's it. There's no functionality over and above that. And that's really what we wanted to encompass, was giving people the ability when they're sat on their sofa watching TV in an evening or over the weekend, and they're actually thinking about this stuff to be able to go on and do stuff, and then for us to be able to log back on it after a weekend and say, oh, actually, so and so's been working. One of our clients has been working on their finances over the weekend, and actually we should touch base. Um, so it's building out functionality and tools that clients want to use and get use out of.
I'm glad to know that. That's been one of my pet peeves about client portals in our industry, is that they are just balance sheets. It's just, here's your holdings, here's your transactions, maybe here's your quarterly performance report, and
Yeah.
that's really it. So we tend to see clients logging in to the portal a lot as a problem. Like, what's wrong? Like, why are they upset? Are they concerned? Why are they logging in so much? Because we don't have a lot of other capabilities in the portal, educational, other informational, other ideas or other parts of finance, so they can learn about things where you say, well, oh, they're in the portal a lot. That's great. We want more interaction. Every other industry measures user online minutes as a success. Here we see it the opposite. We see, oh, well, they're on too
Yeah.
much. What's wrong? So how did you balance that? And what other feature functionality do you have besides the standard capabilities?
Yeah, so look, clearly people can look at it a lot, and obviously, look, if they're looking at it a lot, there is something up, like you said, and we want to make sure that everything is okay. Could be something personally. They could be worried about something, what's happening in the market. So some of the time it might not actually be about you. It might be something that's going on in their own personal life. And obviously that's a
Mm.
key point to check in and make sure everything is okay. Um, I think the functionality within ours is, yes, we need it to show the data of what we're managing. We also want to encompass a wider data set, so properties, other bank accounts that they've got, investment accounts, things that we don't typically see,
Mm.
fine art, jewelry, whiskey collections, whatever it might be. Like, you should be able to see it in one place. From there, it's then about showing them, okay, well, I've got this and I want this. Or, I want to spend this much in retirement, or I want to spend this much on a house when I get to 50, or I want to send my children to this in college or university, and it's going to cost this much. Like, how do we factor all that in? And we use obviously cash flow modeling to do that. We call it wealth flow. So it shows your flow of wealth over time. And we build that in. We've built that in so it's client friendly. Anyone can use it. It's free as well. And we feel that empowering people with those tools to help them make their own decisions and test different factors will lead to better client outcomes, and will also lead, ultimately them wanting to do more with us. And we feel that, just trying to sell one product is not what we want to do. We want to be in, working with the client over multiple facets and really helping them achieve their goals, which is, lifestyle financial planning, which is the area that we really want to sit in and work with clients on.
I'm interested in that you're using the client portal as a prospecting tool. So, do you know how many of your new clients take advantage of that? And is there a higher percentage of close rate of prospects that use that test out the portal?
100%. I mean, look, so what would happen is that a client would book in, and when they book in with one of our business development managers, the business development manager would then send them a link and say, listen, look, we're obviously going to have the meeting, but what will make the meeting even more useful is if you can go on and start adding your assets and information onto it, so that when you do speak to the advisor, then they've got a very clear understanding of what you've got, and it'll make the conversation much more useful, which obviously naturally it will. And obviously it's a free tool for you as well. Whether or not you choose to become a client, it's yours. You can use it. I think you'll find it really useful. So the clients that actually fill it in, we have like a over 80% success rate of converting them at the start into actual clients, because they're heavily invested. They've gone on, they've invested in time, their own time, into putting assets on. Typically, if they've linked accounts, that's an investment as well. So there's little wins for them and buys along the way. And then when we get on there with them on this first meeting, they're much more familiar with us. They're much more familiar with our brand. They know what we're about. And it really helps with that process. So obviously not every client goes on there, not every client completes it, but the ones that do are super sticky and are highly likely to become clients.
I think every advisory firm is looking for super sticky clients.
Mm.
Or an 80% close rate is
Yeah.
incredible. All right. So I think it's something that everyone listening to this can think about, because most of the portals, in fact, I don't know any portal really that is a prospecting tool. So
Yeah.
that's a new capability, I think, that some of the firms here should be taking a look at.
Definitely. 100%. I mean, there was a really successful company that did it in the US called Personal Capital. They got sold to Empower. But that was a whole business that was used to giving free tools and letting people connect their accounts. I think they sold it for like $1 billion or something, an insane amount. For the
Mhm.
amount of AUM they had, it was a very high value, but it was the technology that won it for them.
Mhm.
So yeah, and they built up a fantastic business.
Very familiar with Personal Capital. They built that. Their front end was more of a personal, what we call personal, um, financial management, or a PFM.
Mm.
So would you say your portal is also like, it has PFM functionality? Does it do budgeting, checking, those types of things?
Not at the moment, but they are function. That is functionality that we're looking to roll out. I mean, that's where we want to get to. It's your go-to app for all of that.
One thing you mentioned was physical asset collections. And so we've
Mm.
seen some of these very specific, highly targeted applications that can track, as you mentioned, whiskey collections, handbag collections, cars. Um, so a little bit, that's a little bit different than, of course, none of the standard systems do that in the U.S. That's more like family office or high net worth, ultra high net worth.
Yeah.
So how does that operate? Can they can upload anything? Do you have specific um, setups for those different types of physical assets? How are they priced? Do you allow external people to come in and put the pricing in for those?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, in terms of the assets, I mean, handbag collection caught my ear. I'm sure it'll catch my wife's ear as well. But it's up to them to value it. So they can go on there and value it themselves. There's not kind of a link, let's say, back to we don't have an expert come in valuing, or you've got this Hermes handbag, or you have this Rolex watch or whatever it might be, and this is the actual price. So it would be up for them to value. But given the ability to assign a value against it is far greater than a lot of a lot of other features on other applications we've seen.
Yeah, we worked with a vendor in the U.S. that did that, exactly that.
Wow.
And it was one of those, like one of those guys who was scratching his own itch because it was his firm, and his wife had a huge handbag collection, 200, 300 handbags, and so he built it just for that, and he added a function where an external valuation person, someone who's an expert on whatever Rolex watches, could then log in with just very limited access and update the pricing of whatever the particular collectibles that you had in the system. So I think
It's amazing.
it's pretty valuable and pretty useful for clients of the type that you're looking at.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those kind of alternative assets, which have become very much in vogue, cars, like we said, whiskey collection, watches, handbags, these kinds of things that traditionally would not have been treated as assets, but which now very much are. It's a very niche sector, and obviously, people that are collecting those are wealthy people as well. And naturally, as a wealth manager, they're the kind of people that you want to be talking about. They take these things seriously.
So I'm really interested in all the stuff that you're doing. I love the capabilities you built. So what are some of the things you're looking at building for 2025? What's on the roadmap?
So our roadmap is what we call one day client. That's going to be a big push for 2025. And one day client means one day service essentially across all things. So you should be able to do anything within 24 hours, whether that's you want to become a client, whether that's you want to make a fund switch, whether that's you want to make a withdrawal, whether that's you want to top up your policy, whatever it might be, you should be able to do it within 24 hours with your client. So that involves, automating the whole process the whole way through. And that's our goal for 2025.
That is an ambitious goal. So a couple other questions I had. How many custodians do you work with? Looking at all the different jurisdictions you have.
We work a lot. That's if you asked my CTO what he if he could have anything for Christmas, what he'd do, it'd probably be to narrow down the amount of custodians. I mean, in the US we use three, which is great. In the UK there's a lot, probably 20 plus. And that's just because we've acquired businesses in the UK and some of them have got multiple providers. Um, and then internationally, there's probably about six or seven. So there's quite a lot across the different businesses that we have to take into account. We have to get data feeds in for. We have to make sure the data feeds are correct, which is a whole task in itself. So yeah, it is a bit of a pain, but new business generally tends to be focused around a handful in each jurisdiction.
Where I was leading with that is it's going to be very difficult, or it's going to be a very large lift to do 24-hour turnaround, considering you have to support all of those custodians.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think ultimately we will start with the ones where we have the most assets and we do the most, and then we will roll back to some of the others. Because really, it's the same field, same application, same process. In a lot of them, it's just where the fields marry up and how you map that. But clearly, ones that we're putting lots of business through, we would focus on them first.
This has really been fascinating. I mean, I have a million other questions, but we're kind of out of time. So, where can people listening find out more about Hoxton Wealth?
www.hoxtonwealth.com. That's our website. And if they want to follow me on LinkedIn, Chris Ball Hoxton, they're more than welcome to. I give regular comments and commentary on there on what's happening within the international wealth space, and love to talk to anyone.
And it's Hoxton, Hoxton.
Exactly. Is in the place. Hoxton. Yeah. Hoxton.
Excellent. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
It's Craig again. Here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. Hoxton Wealth grew from 45 million to 2.5 billion in just 5 years, and they're now serving 7,000 global clients. And Chris is based, as you heard, in Dubai. Now, they built their own tech stack, all proprietary, which I thought I've never heard of, at the size of their company, including the CRM, client portal, and planning tools. So kudos to them and their team of 25 developers. Now, the client portal doubles as a prospecting tool, which Chris reported just driving an 80% conversion rate for engaged prospects, which is pretty incredible. Too bad they're not selling that. And they have an ambitious one-day client initiative, which aims for a 24-hour turnaround on all client requests by end of 2025. And that will be pretty amazing. I'm going to follow up with Chris at the end of the year and see how they did there. All right, well, you made it to the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, please head to our website, EzraGroup.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, information, and updates. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.